Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Lakewood City Council study session of October 2nd, 2017, 7 p.m. Will the clerk please call roll?
Paul.
Here.
Coop.
Here.
Wickman. Here. Gutwein.
Here.
Franks.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Roybal.
Here.
Vincent.
Here.
Abel. Johnson.
Here.
Shakti.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody who's tuning in, and for those that came out this evening. It's kind of a somber night, and I think the weather reflects some of that emotion that we're feeling in our community. So I'd like to just take a quick moment and ask for a moment of just silence to remember those in Las Vegas and the families, first responders, and everybody who's been affected, please. Thank you. So next up on our item on our list, we have public comment.
Mayor, if I may,
Certainly.
I don't ordinarily jump in on these things, but recent events were a little bit close to home for me. I got a phone call last night, quarter to midnight. My youngest daughter, Rachel, who works and lives in California, is a country western fan, and she was at the concert last night. So I got that call late at night, knowing, of course, couldn't make anything out through all the tears and screaming, but it was like she's all right. She wasn't hurt. Her boyfriend wasn't hurt. The friends she was with, her whole group was not injured. They just had a big scare. So she wanted me to put out the word to her friends here in Colorado that she is fine. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. That's definitely tough. Okay, so next up is public comment, but by the looks of everybody in here, it doesn't look like anybody wants to comment. You'll have your moment to speak here in a little bit, unless I'm wrong and you'd like to talk about one of these issues. So I'll skip that and we'll move into our next item, which is a presentation, Community Resources Master Plan Update. Jump the gun. Good evening, Ms. Newland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are delighted to be here tonight to talk to you about two plans, the Imagine Lakewood Master Plan and the Lakewood Heritage Center Master Plan. So we're going to start with the Imagine Lakewood, the Master Plan for CR, and then I'm going to do a little introduction, and then we'll have Sonia Whittink. I have a terrible time with this name, so I've already asked her forgiveness. That Whittink. Thank you. She's going to talk about the research study. She's from the National Research Center. And then Allison Check from our department will come up, and she'll be talking about the plan itself. At that time, we'll take questions from you and get your feedback. And then after we're finished with that plan, then Michelle Neerling, our division manager for Heritage, Culture, and the Arts, will be coming up to present to you the Lakewood Heritage Center plan. So with that, we'll get started. For the last 9 months, our department has been working very hard to plan arts, parks, and recreation for the next 5 years. And as a reminder, our mission statement is, the Community Resources Department is committed to providing high-quality park, recreation, family, and cultural services and facilities that inspire enjoyment, learning, and wellness in the lives of those who live, work, and play in Lakewood. So why do we plan? Master planning is important because it establishes the community's priorities. The Community Resources Department completed its last master plan in 2008, and while there were a number of items and action steps that we have completed, we thought it would be fun to highlight 10. So the top 10 are, we've acquired trail and park property, including some property along Dry Gulch to complete a piece of trail. Hilltop Park became the city's own in 2008. We acquired South Sheridan Fields and Bombard properties in 2007 and 8. And then most recently, we acquired 4 acres of Sunset to include in Sunset Park. We've strengthened our collaboration with the school district by adding multiple programs, including the summer camp programs, where we've worked with Mulholm Elementary. The MSSP sports program has expanded. We've added another site for our after-school camp at Creighton Middle School. We've added a teen arts league that is helping us to expand our arts and culture programs. We've also been partnering with the school district and Great Outdoors Colorado to help them access play yard grant funding. And I think that's the end of that list. The city has also added 2 spray parks. 2009, we added Ray Ross, 2012 Surfside. We've improved access to parks and recreation and cultural facilities. We completed a trail assessment, which we'll be using to look at improvements along the trails. We've worked collaboratively with the county, excuse me, on wayfinding for the on-street regional trail system. And we've completed and published the city's first bike map. We've realized greater efficiencies with cost and time savings through the use of an asset management system that helps us track the equipment and its repairs and replacements. We've reduced our environmental footprint by LEED certification at the 11th Avenue Head Start building, by adding LED lighting in our parks and facilities, and by using low water solutions in our facilities. Our marketing and outreach efforts have evolved through the use of email newsletters, social media, and online engagement. Specific actions have been taken to manage and promote our parks and natural areas, including the completion of a natural areas management plan, a tree inventory, and expanded naturalist programs. The city's first public art master plan has been completed with goals, objectives, and funding, and we've responded to the need for care for our city's history through the use of a citywide historic preservation master plan and the implementation of a historic preservation commission. And we've expanded heritage programs and events. We've also continued to rehab and care for our historic facilities, including the Estes Motel, the Caretaker's Cottage, and the O'Kane House. So the process that we used for this planning was we started with a community survey that was going on between January and March, and Sonia will talk more with you about the details of that. We received back over 2,200 surveys. Then we shared those results online and at public open houses and a variety of events. We asked for clarification in areas where we needed a little bit more detail and information. And then we got to work crafting our goals and actions, which were then presented to the community. And we asked for their feedback, both online and at public meetings. Based on that feedback, we made revisions to those goals and actions, and those were presented back to the community in late August. So all of the goals and actions that you see in this plan are grounded in the citizen survey. So at this time, to talk with you in more detail, I'd like to invite Sonia up, and she's the Director of Research at the National Research Center, and she'll be talking specifically about the survey.
Thank you. Good evening, Sonia.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And thank you, Kit. So in general, this is going to be kind of a high altitude overview of the results. There's a lot of details in our report, and it's just a little too much for a presentation. Some overall points just before we dive in. First of all, just by surveying, you are a rare community. And it's a great way to bring the voice of the people into your processes. And it's a really amazing thing that you've done with the survey results to go back and clarify and get more details. So we're just really happy to be the first step in this great process. So surveying, one of the best things about it is it really ensures that you're going to hear from your full constituency. It's great that people come to meetings and call you up and all of those things, but not everyone has the time, the time or the passion to do that. So doing a survey just lets you hear from just the broad spectrum of your constituency. Oops. Did I just go backwards? Oops. No, there you go. So a little bit about my firm. We started in 1994, and we've completed thousands of research projects since then. We work with most of your neighbors in the Front Range and with over 100 different cities and counties each year. We conduct surveys on all aspects of governments, but many specifically are related to parks, recreation. And we also regularly partner with planning firms in their processes to help bring the voice of the people into when they're helping cities create master plans. We literally wrote the book on surveying residents and to bring the voice of the people into decision-making processes. And we take our responsibilities very, very, very seriously. We use only the best practices in survey research to ensure our results are truly representative of your community. And we've committed to always disclosing these methods in our methodologies in the back of our reports so that anyone can go and assess how we did this. And this is part of our partnership with the American Association of Public Opinion Researchers Transparency Initiative. So the survey was developed with an iterative process between Lakewood City and NRC staff. Council members, frontline employees were all asked to describe what they were hearing from residents, what they were interested in finding out about, and this information was used to narrow down the topics of interest, and then we helped develop survey questions. And our expertise is in helping how you ask a question, making sure it's not leading, making sure it's going to get your right information, making sure when the information comes back that you're clear on what the results mean. So we mailed out a postcard to 3,000 randomly selected Lakewood residents, notifying them that there was a survey that was going to come the following week, which is a best practice. And then we followed that with a survey a week later, and then there was one more reminder survey sent after that. There were 523 responses to that mailed survey, yielding a response rate of 18%, which is pretty standard for this type of survey. That's a little bit more of a special interest. And then we also made the web survey available to everyone after that. And a lot of people opted in to do the web survey, which is great. Ali and Kit did a great job getting the word out there and getting people to voice their opinion through that option. So that garnered over 1,600 responses. And the results from both of these efforts were combined and weighted to reflect the demographic proportions of your community. And just as a sort of side note, we actually, when we looked at the results from both of those surveys, they were very similar, which doesn't always happen because often when you do an opt-in survey, you get a little more skewed population, but you guys got a really great representation in that opt-in survey. So we were able to combine them. So with that, you had 2,212 respondents, and that provides for a plus or minus 2% margin of error. And what that means is that if, like, say 70% of people said a service was excellent, then, or of the respondents said the survey was excellent or services were excellent, then we would be confident that between 68 and 72% of your population would think that as well. There was also comparisons made in the report by demographic and geographic subgroups. Those details are, as I said, are in the report, but here we're just going to focus on the overall results. So, right to the questions. So the first question was asked about usage of recreation and cultural facilities operated by the city. 14 parks or facilities were named, and this slide here just shows, or were named. This slide just shows the ones that were used the most by the most people. Those not shown on the slide were visited by fewer than 20% of respondents in the 12 months before the survey. Bear Creek Lake Park was visited by just under half of Lakewood households in the last 12 months, or in the 12 months before the survey, and the heritage and cultural centers were visited by about 30%. So since people generally just visit their closest recreation center, we also looked at how many people had visited at least one of the 4 recreation centers, and that was 45%. So that's pretty high. Residents were also asked about these 14 facilities and if they needed any improvements or upgrades. For the most part, people didn't answer this question if they hadn't gone to the recreation center or the facility we're mentioning. About half or more thought the 5 facilities shown on the chart, Lakewood Link, Green Mountain, and Carmody recreation centers, Bear Creek Lake Park, and Morse Park Pool needed some improvements. Others were thought to need work by fewer than half of those with an opinion. The 2 golf courses were thought to need renovation by the fewest proportion of respondents. Less than 30% of the golf course users thought they needed improvements. Residents were next asked about any barriers to using the city's recreation or cultural facilities. So basically why they hadn't used facilities if they hadn't used any of the facilities. And the most commonly cited reason was just not knowing about the facility, followed by just not having time to. About 1 in 5 said they were not interested in the facilities they hadn't visited, and 1 in 5 were stopped by the expense. You'll notice a percentage on this chart do add to more than 100 because people could have more than one reason. To get a broad perspective about how people feel, residents were asked how much they agreed or disagreed with statements about parks, trails, open space, recreation, and cultural resources provided by the city. Most people agreed that the resources were close enough to home, that they were safe, and that the locations were distributed fairly. They expressed that it was important for them to be able to recycle at parks and facilities, and that they were satisfied with graffiti removal. They were also asked how much of a problem, if at all, there were some potential issues that we brought up. So over half thought that dog waste was a major or moderate problem, and 4 in 10 thought that dogs off leash was at least a moderate problem as well. All issues mentioned were thought to be at least a minor problem by more than half of the respondents. The 6 in 10 respondents who thought that overcrowding was a problem were asked which parks or facilities were overcrowded. 1/4 thought overcrowding was a problem in Bear Creek Park, and 1 in 10 thought it was a problem in Green Mountain Park. Fewer than 1 in 10 thought it was a problem in all the other parks. Residents were also asked to rate the importance of 19 city-provided programs, and all were thought to be essential or very important by more than half of respondents, with 10% or fewer rating any of the programs as not at all important. Here we show the 5 thought to be most important to most people, programs for children, youth, and seniors, and those with special needs, and swimming and water activities for all ages. But again, most of the programs were thought to be essential or important by a majority of people. Residents were presented with a list of 22 activities, facilities, and resources, and asked how likely it was, if at all, that the adults in their households would use them. The top are shown here. So at least 7 in 10 residents would be very or somewhat likely to use large indoor multi-use pools, outdoor fitness programs and equipment, a community theater, health and wellness education classes, or an outdoor leisure pool or spray park. So when thinking about interest, you can also kind of think about strength of intention. So some people said they were very likely, people said they were somewhat likely. And you would expect that people who are very likely are more likely to get there, and people who are somewhat likely may have the intention but not make the plan. So the items that most adults, or had the most adults who were very likely to use them, were the large multi-use pool, the off-leash dog park, and outdoor leisure pools or spray parks. We also asked them about the youth in their household, and it was the same 22 items. At least half of respondents said that the youth in their household would be very likely to use 15 of the 22. Or somewhat, I should say. The activities, facilities, and resources that were most likely to be used by youth were a large indoor multi-use pool, an outdoor leisure pool or water spray park, a nature playground, or a large outdoor sports field complex. Looking at both adults and youth together, these are the 4 items that 6 in 10 adults and 6 in 10 youth were likely to use. So the most likely to be used by the whole community. And that was the large indoor pool, the outdoor leisure pool, the outdoor fitness equipment in parks for community use, and a community theater. To use facilities, you have to get there. So when they were asked how easy or difficult they thought it was to get to Lakewood amenities and facilities using different types of transportation, about 8 in 10 residents thought it was very easy to get to them by cars, and the others mostly thought it was somewhat easy. I think 3% said it was somewhat difficult. About 3/4 thought it was easy to access these places by bike, while walking or using public transportation was thought to be at least somewhat easy by about 6 in 10 people. It should be noted that fewer than 4 in 10 thought biking, walking, or taking transportation to the facilities was very easy. Residents were next asked to indicate their most preferred method of funding for various upgrades or new services. This varies by the thing funded, but overall tax increases or a public-private partnership were the most popular. Very few people actually said that they were not willing to pay for upgrades, and few prioritized government borrowing. A tax increase was most preferred for funding improvements or additions to existing parks and facilities and for park and open space acquisition. Public-private partnership was most preferred for funding new multi-purpose recreation facility, after-school services for youth, or transportation for older adults and the disabled. When asked if there was anyone in their household who participated in the city older adult program, overall 17% said yes. When you look at those households that actually had an older adult in them, 45% said that at least one person had used an older adult program. Setting aside for those for whom the program was not applicable, the most common reason for not using them was the program not being of interest to the person, not knowing that the program existed, or scheduling conflicts. And that was about 2 in 10 for each of those. And then cost was prohibited to about 8% of households with older adults. About 30% of households in Lakewood had a golfer. And of those who did, about 6 in 10 played at Fox Hollow or Homestead courses. Respondents who golfed but did not use Fox Hollow or Homestead were asked why not. About 1/3 said they had no time, and 1/4 indicated cost as a factor, or 1/4 also said that they'd just like to play other courses. 2 in 10 did not know Fox Hollow or Homestead golf courses existed. So 2 in 10 of the 30% who golf. Not 2 in 10 of Lakewood. Let's see. So just over 1/3 of our respondent households had registered for a city program, reserved a facility, secured a tee time, or purchased a ticket from the city in the 12 months before the survey. And of these, about half had completed the registration payment online, about 4 in 10 had done so in person, and about 1/3 had completed the transaction by phone. Almost all who had purchased or registered rated their experience as excellent or good. To assess gaps in services, respondents were given a list of 23 types of facilities or places and asked if they thought the city provided too much, too little, or just about right, the amount to serve the needs of the community. And for 18 of the 23 facilities or places listed, half or more felt the city had the right amount. For 5, a majority of respondents thought there were too little or far too little. These included community gardens, places to participate in winter sports, places for off-leash dogs to play or exercise, water spray parks, and places to fish. Did I go one too far? Is it? Oh, it is. It just looks the same. The final evaluative question on the survey was open-ended. Respondents were asked to indicate in their own words the most important issues related to parks, recreation, open space, and/or cultural and art services for the city to address. These were categorized by NRC staff, and the top 5 are shown here. The actual comments can be found in the report. More than 4 in 10 residents made a comment related to having new facilities. About 1/3 thought more programming or services was important. And at least 2 in 10 referenced safety or rule enforcement. And 2 in 10 represented updating or maintaining existing facilities and services. And with that, I will turn it over to Allison Scheck to talk more about the process.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Sonia. I'm Allison Scheck. I'm the Public Engagement and Operations Manager in the Department of Community Resources, and it's been a real pleasure working on Imagine Lakewood this year. It's been great. I'd just really like to pick up right where Sonia left off and talk about what we did next. So our friends, our partners at the National Research Center crunched the numbers, gave us the data, and as Kip mentioned, we put that on, we put the full report online, and we made it front and center in our public process so that our residents could really understand the perspectives of their neighbors as they were then asked to comment further. We really wanted to drill down on things that we perhaps wanted clarification on from the survey or just wanted to know more about. So we spent the summer having a really broad conversation with the community, where we dug further into the survey's findings to ensure that we were truly in tune with the desires of our residents. And I'm going to give you an overview of that conversation now. It included a number of open houses, public meetings, a website designed to garner online engagement with our residents, and conversations with attendees at events. So in June, we held 4 public open houses. We posed questions online, and we interviewed stakeholders to gather more detailed information on the key topics revealed in the survey. So for example, we asked to know more about what hinders your enjoyment of parks and open space. How would our residents go about solving the off-leash and dog waste issues? What stops them from participating in our programs? And how do they want to receive news from us about events and programs? We also asked for clarification on some of those top things you heard about in the survey. What outdoor fitness programs and or fitness equipment would appeal to you? What does community theater mean to you? I know what it means to me. What would a large aquatic facility look like? I'm just going to pause for a moment and just talk a little bit about our success with engaging residents online at lakewood.org/imagine. And this is a screenshot of the site. The site received over 5,300 total visits from about 4,000 unique visitors. Over 700 web visitors actually read or downloaded some information from the site, and over 100 contributed an idea or gave feedback. We did promote this heavily through our usual city communication channels, and we also built an Imagine Lakewood specific email database where we gathered over 650 email addresses, and we kept those folks updated as we moved through the summer. So some of the things that we learned, when it comes to barriers, beyond not knowing about a program, that's our very own Wally Piccone up there, we learned that time, and that's a combination of time poverty and scheduling, was the biggest barrier to participation. And again, this is coming from folks that we talked to. Adults cited childcare as a concern for them, and a factor in stopping them from working out. And many actually commented during this time, there was a big buzz about the new outdoor fitness equipment going in at Comedy Park. And so a lot of folks told us, we're really excited about that. We will take our kids there. I'll get a workout in and watch my kiddos play. When it comes to awareness, most residents we talked to told us that they rely on Facebook and Nextdoor.com to hear about events and programs from the city. Many commented that they do receive our emails, and we got some pretty positive feedback on that. We have a host of different newsletters that we use. Residents suggested, this was really a good idea, suggested providing a resource packet to families through the schools in Lakewood. We like that idea. The use of text messages came up as an idea to promote our events and goings on. Currently, that's not a practice for us. And I'm happy to say that some commented that they received their news from you all, our mayor and city council. So thank you for spreading the word. As for ideas for solving off-leash and dog waste issues, we heard add more dog parks, take away dog parks, don't let any dogs off leash, more aggressively enforce poop pickup, use volunteers to manage and monitor enforce these issues, charge for dog park use, and add more waste stations. As far as other hindrances, you can, as you know, dogs off leash and dog waste was sort of the top hindrance to enjoyment of park and open space. But also we heard about shared trails, so the bikers and hikers, walkers situation. I know you've all heard about that. Smoking, geese, not so popular, and some overcrowding. And comments on all of this can be found in your appendix. So Appendix A is the survey report, the full survey report. Appendices B through F. So everything I've talked about, every comment is in Appendix C, and that starts on page 9. They're unedited for grammar or anything, but just have a look and you'll see. At the open houses and online, we asked residents to tell us what parks and facilities they visit. And we asked them to tell us what they like about those facilities and what they thought should be improved. And through this exercise, we learned that residents do indeed visit a number of facilities and that they use facilities across the city. So in fact, only 5% of the time did residents indicate the facilities they visit are within a half mile of their home. And again, their thoughts about what they like and what should be improved is in the back of Appendix C. Finally, we conducted facility-specific surveys, questionnaires really, on the top 4 that were identified in the main survey that Sonia talked about. And as a reminder, that's the Lakewood Link Recreation Center, Green Mountain Recreation Center, Carmody Rec Center, and Bear Creek Lake Park. We received over 500 responses in total to those 4 surveys. And again, the results are in your appendix book, Appendix D. Full results are in there. That starts on page 18. Here we learned that updating the cardio and weight equipment at the recreation centers is the highest priority for rec center users. And at Bear Creek Lake Park specifically, we learned that upgrades to the bathrooms and showers are necessary along with access to drinking water. So that's what we did in sort of May, June, July. And then after gathering all that community feedback, we started to craft proposed goals and actions, which we presented to the community both in person at public meetings and online in early August. And here's a photo of one of our early August meetings. There's our fearless leader, Kit Newland, right there at a table, and all of the CR leadership who are here this evening. Residents at 3 different meetings listened to a presentation, and then they participated in an hour-long discussion in small groups. So you can see everyone gathered around these tables with members of the CR leadership team. And I have to say, it was a really great way for residents to engage with each other and to engage with us. It was a nice, intimate discussion, and we found it to be really rich and rewarding. They discussed what excited and concerned them about the goals and actions, and they talked about what they thought was missing. So at the end of the meeting, residents wrote down their top priority on a sticky note, and the results of which can be found in Appendix E of your book. So based on all that, we further refined the goals and actions. And at the end of August, this is a picture of us, we presented the community with a final draft of the goals and actions, both in person here and online. And that is what we're going to discuss right now. So the proposed plan, the plan that we're proposing to you this evening, Imagine Lakewood, has 6 goals and 42 actions. And in a nutshell, they cover these areas. The first is to provide high quality programs and services. The second is to improve and maintain what we have. The third is to add new facilities and amenities. The fourth, to create a safe and pleasant experience in our parks and facilities. The fifth, to enhance communication and marketing. And the sixth, to provide exceptional stewardship, preservation, and encourage volunteerism. So I'm going to talk about each of the goals. I won't go into too much detail, but if you'd like to follow along, you could go to your master plan book. It starts on page 33, and that will actually list out the specific actions for you. If you're interested in greater detail, I turn you to your appendices book. Go to Appendix F, which starts on page 76. So follow along with me either way, but that's where, in the appendices is where you'll see our action plan steps, which I'm not going to go into detail on this evening for the sake of brevity and you all. So, and our friends over here. So our first goal is to meet the needs of the community by offering a variety of high quality and engaging programs, services, and initiatives. Our planning process demonstrated the extent to which our programs, including transportation, continue to be a priority for our Lakewood residents. So to meet this goal, we'll take a number of actions that include developing new programs, meeting increasing transportation needs, establishing best practices related to inclusion and diversity, continuing to remove financial barriers, meeting the interest in community theatre, updating Lakewood's cultural plan, and strengthening community partnerships. Our second goal is to continue to take care of and improve Lakewood's existing cultural, recreational facilities, and parks. So the community was clear, both in the survey and in the public process, that continuing to maintain what we have is important. And as the caretaker of much of the city's property, Community Resources works collaboratively with the planning department and others in the city to implement the sustainability plan that you all adopted in 2015. So you're going to see actions to enforce implementing that plan appear here in goal number 2 and elsewhere in our Imagine Lakewood plan. Actions to satisfy this goal include identifying potential areas of enhancement and expansion of our existing facilities, continuing to implement building assessments, maximizing existing programming space, and continuing to renovate our playgrounds. Our third goal is to respond to community needs through the addition of new facilities and amenities. And I have to tell you, this was a really fun one to cover with the community. As you recall from the survey, we learned that according to residents, there are too few community gardens, too few places to exercise dogs off leash, too few water spray parks. So this was all echoed during the community process, along with the desire to explore a new destination pool and recreation facility. So new facilities and amenities called for here in goal number 3 include adding community gardens, aquatic features, dog parks, and outdoor fitness equipment. Also included is studying the feasibility of a destination pool and rec facility, implementing established department plans, and exploring alternative funding options for new facilities and amenities. And I'm actually just going to pause here for a moment and talk about dog parks because, I want to just talk a little bit about how we might propose going about that. And this is a good example of pointing you to the action steps located, in this case, on page 78 of your appendices book under Action 3D. We know, we all know that dog parks pose complicated challenges for municipalities. And you might have read in the news about some of the challenges other communities have faced when exploring the addition or potential closure of dog parks. And in all the feedback we gathered, you can also see how differently our residents feel about this issue. So we plan to take our time and do lots of research before we add another dog park to our system. So as an example, our action steps include first, developing criteria to aid in the selection and site selection. And we can do that by heeding the advice of other jurisdictions who've learned lessons through inadequate site design. We'll explore best practices related to site design. We'll evaluate different kinds of operational structures such as free use, membership, the use of doggy DNA services. There's lots of different options to explore. It's true. We will evaluate different kinds of operational structures such as free use, membership, passes. We'll develop management criteria to address sanitation and contamination issues, aggressive animals, inappropriate owner behavior, etc. So again, this is all going to take some time before we're ready to actually propose a site and break ground on a dog park. Okay. So back to our goals. Goal number 4 is to create an inspiring, safe, and pleasant experience in our park and facilities. We learned that Lakewood residents love their parks, and there are some hindrances to enjoyment, the top 2 again being dogs off leash and dog waste, and I'm happy to say that work is underway with regard to these top 2 issues. So we've already started discussions with neighboring jurisdictions about their experiences. And after talking to these partners, it became clear that getting a better understanding of our on-leash compliance would be prudent. So while we need to do more research, I'll just give you a little bit of the information we gathered over the summer. An initial effort where we recorded over 400 random observations estimates an on-leash compliance rate of about 80% in Lakewood. So that means that 1 in every 5 dogs was observed off-leash when we did the random observations, which definitely has an impact on other park visitors. Regarding dog waste, as you know, we're a partner in the regional initiative called Let's Do It, and you have some goodies on your tables tonight. This focuses on education about the effects of laying dog waste in our public spaces, and it's gaining momentum as other jurisdictions are jumping on board. It includes signage, an online pledge, volunteer cleanup days, and a new educational website, letsdoit.org. And don't forget, it's do with 2 O's. Okay, so let's do it. Yeah. So to meet this goal, we need a song. We need a jingle. So to meet this goal, we'll improve on-leash compliance and decrease laying dog waste in our park system. We'll continue to advance zero waste goals through recycling and composting at our parks, facilities, and at events. We'll address overcrowding issues at Bear Creek Lake Park, add public art and interpretive information to our parks and facilities, and we'll evaluate the use of the city's trails and park path system. Goal number 5 is to empower Lakewood residents to make the most of their parks, cultural, and recreational opportunities through effective marketing and communication. Through the survey, we learned that the number one reason residents don't participate in our programs is because they don't know about them. And so this goal is all about reaching more residents with our information. And to do that, we'll develop a marketing plan. We'll maximize our family of publications, such as the Community Connection, Bravo, etc. We'll develop best communication practices to target some harder to reach populations. We'll enhance our communication efforts to families through Lakewood's schools in Lakewood. We loved that idea. We'll increase awareness of winter recreational and fishing opportunities, and we'll explore the potential of a citizen advocacy network to spread the word about our programs through word of mouth. And finally, our 6th and final goal is to provide exceptional stewardship of the city's parks, cultural and recreational resources, and encourage stewardship development in the community. We know that our natural and historical resources are a priority for our residents, and this goal reinforces our commitment to care for and maintain our natural areas and historical assets, as well as engaging the community through volunteerism and stewardship. Volunteerism plays a large role in how the Community Resources Department delivers its services. And in 2016, volunteers contributed almost 47,000 hours to the Community Resources Department alone. When we also heard from the public that volunteerism could be a way to address the dog waste and dogs off leash issue, and we agree it's worth exploring. So to fulfill this goal, we'll continue as a leader in effective water management. We'll fine-tune and expand the Natural Areas Management Plan. We'll evaluate the current park dedication fee structure. We'll expand stewardship of our historical resources, and we'll advance the Historic Preservation Program and grow our volunteer program. So that's the plan, and now I'd just like to invite Kit Newland back up to tell you about next steps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allie. So, and I also just want to say a quick thanks and recognition for the leadership team from Community Resources who are all here tonight. Everybody played a huge role in meeting with citizens and hearing their feedback. So they all wanted to be here to hear this plan presented. So before closing out, just a couple things I wanted to mention. What turned out to be really interesting is that the goals that came up through this process are similar to the goals that we had in 2008. The plans that we've been working on from 2008 line up really nicely with those. So we're just kind of continuing along in that direction, which was really great news. And there were a couple things I wanted to mention specifically that are covered in action items, action steps for this plan that I wanted to bring to your attention that we've already started working on. And they involve access to more programs through our Lakewood Possibilities Scholarship funding, using our building assessments to make sure that we're taking care of our infrastructure. We're identifying places where we have some weak spots, such as the link pool. Those problems were identified through our assessment. With the support from City Council, we've done some playground improvements. We did 6 playground improvements from 2016 to 17, and then next year we're ready to have 2 more finished up. With the ACIC and Denver Urban Gardens partnership, we've been working to identify sites that could be potential gardens, and we've got 5 of those already identified. And we'll be working further on that starting in January on talking to the neighbors about their interest levels at those sites. We've also, as Allie mentioned, we've installed outdoor fitness equipment, which came up as a high priority. We'll be doing that at Lasley, just like we did at Carmody. We're also looking at digital delivery of our publications to reach more people, such as Community Connections, Bravo, and so forth. We've already started looking at that. And Allie also mentioned smart water management. Our Parks Division has been recognized by Denver Water as using best practices for water management. And recently they were highlighted in a video that Denver Water put out as an example for other communities. So we're really proud of that, and we certainly do intend to keep setting that standard. So we'll be back in front of you on October 23rd with a resolution for adoption of our plan. And so we're definitely interested now in hearing any of your feedback. And then we'll also continue to keep this plan updated on our website, and we'll provide progress reports as we go. Just one last thing, a big thank you to all the citizens that participated in the planning process. We know that people took lots of time out of their own private lives, and it was really meaningful for us in coming up with what we think is a plan that really is driven by our citizens. So, and thank you all to City Council for all of the support that you provide to our department. And we're ready for your questions now.
All right, Ms. Newland, thank you very much. And it looks like we're lighting up, so there should be some good questions. So we will, let's save comments until everybody has a chance to ask questions. I have a couple. So we have a smoking geese problem.
Oh, was that one of the comments? There's some really interesting comments.
Smoking in parks and geese,
Yes.
separate. Make sure they're 18. So it looks like 19%. So one of the feedback points was on the cost, and so we had 19% and of that 8% were older adults. Is that fair to say? It looks like, is that how it was explained in the crosstab?
So I think that was the question for the older adult programs.
Okay.
And so what it was 45% of people had, or of older adult households had used programs. Then we asked people we asked everybody why they didn't use older adult programs, because it was a mail survey, so you could just go through it. But when you looked at just the households with older adults, 8% of them said that one of their barriers to using older adult programs was cost.
Okay. And then, so the 19% was just as a whole, and we don't know how that breaks down as to if that's youth or family or
So
seniors.
I'm just going to.
Okay. That was the breakdown, was 19. And you know what, if you don't have it right now, we have a couple weeks, that's fine. I was just curious because we're doing the scholarship programs. So I was curious if that's going to help benefit the folks who are cost prohibitive.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, as I said that, of the 8%, I'm sure that was about the older adult households. But I think we did ask one other cost question. I just
That's
don't
all
know
right.
off the top of my head.
We can get that in the
clarify
next
that.
couple weeks, yeah. And then when you talked about public-private partnerships and folks were excited about funding new amenities that way, was there an example used, or was there a qualifier of what exactly that public-private partnership was? So I think for recreational opportunities, it's a little bit different. I can't think of one unless you teamed up with like a private provider or.
Yeah, it was pretty broad, basically
Okay.
described just as a public-private partnership. So I think, that's why something like, transportation, you can think of something like VIA or something like that where you would partnership with
Yeah.
them. So I think the ones that people were most interested did make sense in the sense that like a water park, you could possibly be partnering with a corporation that would want
Sure.
to build a water park.
And then I know, and this isn't specific to probably this plan, but it's specific to us planning as we look further out and make sure that we have the amenities for the community. Do we have data that tells us how close people live to parks? Is everybody within a mile, within a half mile?
Can you take that?
We do, actually. Yeah, we have what's called a GRASP analysis that's been updated. And we have standards and we have an understanding of where there are gaps. So we can provide that information.
I think that'd be interesting for council to see. And then last but not least, what's a community theater?
Well, that is the question, because I know what it means to me. But actually, we had some, Michelle's here, and we had some really good conversations with the community about that, about whether or not they were talking about, considering is the cultural center the community theater, or is it the program of community theater? Meaning, if you think about Performance Now that performs at the cultural center, so in some people's minds, that's what they're thinking community theater means. And it means, I want to do community theater. I want my friends to do community theater. Personally, I think Lakewood should have the biggest community theater troupe in the world. But we didn't get a straight answer, honestly, when we dug more into the public feedback on that. I think programming, because was key.
Okay. Well, thank you. Ms. Harrison, questions?
Thank you. What a fantastic report. It's always, this is the fun side, to see what makes everybody's heart tick. One of the things that I wondered is, in getting the word out, one of the issues that we saw was kind of a communication. Do we use other languages?
Yes and no, a little. So we started dabbling in more bilingual signage and bilingual materials, and we've had some real success with that. So, for example, this past summer, the Summer Fun Pass, which is an outdoor pool pass, we did bilingual signage and bilingual materials, and we sold more of those passes where we did that. We have bilingual signage in our parks regarding park shelters. But what we know, something else that we've done recently is we actually held a focus group with some members of the Latino community here in Lakewood. Really active, engaged residents. And we learned that while in this case, these members spoke great English and kept apologizing for not, and their English was very good, but it was also about feeling more welcome if we are providing material in other languages. So that's why if you look at the action steps, I didn't highlight it perhaps enough, but there's 2 places in there where we actually talk about very specifically looking at starting off with bilingual materials and really starting to dive into that.
Thank you.
Mr. Roybal.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to bring that up, kind of piggybacking on Latino population. In 2000, the U.S. Census Bureau put the city of Lakewood at 22%. That was in 2000, and now we're guesstimating it about 35% Latino population. If I look at the, we won't really know till 2020, but we're kind of guesstimating where we're at and where we're moving forward. But thank you for doing that. But I also wanted to bring out, Kit, thank you. Thank you for Ray Ross Park. It's very well enjoyed. People are having great baseball games there. The kiddos during the summer months are just having a fantastic splash day. And again, Founders Park, which is a little teeny park tucked into the neighborhood, and the kids, they're really enjoying it. They came to me and they said, this is a great little park. And now we're looking forward to Lasley Park. So that we're looking forward to and seeing the huge changes and kind of moving forward. And last but not least, I know that it's down the road, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, but we were looking at Bonfie Staten Park. And that one is on Pierce in Kentucky. Wanted to see if maybe there's a vision for that somehow, somewhere in the future. I know right now it's a vacant piece of property and stuff, but I think it would be great to turn it into a park. I know it has its challenges because it's on a hill, but maybe we can, with some imagination, maybe we can come up with a great idea there. So I'm just putting that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Franks?
Thanks, Mayor Paul. My question kind of surrounds the fitness zone at Carmody Park that was done in partnership with Centura Health. I was wondering if anybody is kind of maybe periodically monitoring that to see which pieces of equipment are being used more often and if there's sufficient amounts of equipment. I just kind of wanted a little bit more information on that.
We do have our parks crews monitoring the equipment for maintenance. And we have recreation staff that take groups out there and orient them to the equipment. I don't think anybody's evaluating the use, so that's a great suggestion. We'll take a look at that. We don't have, the parks crews would be the most logical people since they're the ones who are out there most often. So it's definitely something we could take a look at.
Sure. I've just seen other parks where, and it's older equipment, don't get me wrong, that never gets used and it just ages and falls apart and then it doesn't become really an amenity. And so I'm just kind of curious how we can kind of take this example and say what's working, what's not, and not just keep replicating everywhere if we're going to just let stuff sit and kind of age.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Good point.
Ms. Shakti?
What's a teen arts league?
The Teen Arts League is it's a teen advisory group, for lack of a better word. That's not exactly the right word, but it's called a league so that it's not called an advisory group, but it is a group of teens that consults with our cultural and arts staff to help them understand what teens would like in that area, in arts programming. And it's helped us to understand and provided opportunities for more outreach into the schools.
And you talked about the Denver water video. Can you send us an email directing us to that?
You bet. Happy to.
And then I'm just going to slip in my comment aside from it's all amazing. I was surprised how high the nature playground scored, and I thought that was pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. It was a very nice presentation. I just want to thank you for adding acreage to Sunset Park. That's a big deal in that neighborhood. And I'd also like to put in a good word for us to look at more parks along Colfax, particularly as we are getting more densification along Colfax. We don't have enough places for people to go. And there's not a lot of land left there right now. So if there's something I can do to help, whatever. I'd just like to see us go in that direction, please.
Ms. Gutwein?
Thank you. I'll try to follow the rule and not talk about how amazing that was, and you really hit it out of the park. But I do have a lot of comments afterwards. Couple questions. What is a destination pool?
A destination pool is a pool that's an attraction, amenity that's kind of flashy enough that people will go across town. So I would give you the example of the Pirates Cove in Inglewood. People drive from way up north to that particular place, or Highland Hills, or that kind of thing, where it's big enough and flashy enough and has enough features that people will go further.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then the other question is, I can't remember the timeline, but was this survey done before the renovations that were done at the link?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then my last question is, one thing that I noticed that's kind of interesting to me is the survey results showed that people feel like there's an even distribution of the parks in the city, even though if we look at a map of the city, we can see there's not really an even distribution of the parks. And I was wondering if you had any idea from maybe the additional conversations or the comments, if you had any idea why people feel that way, if it's just because maybe they usually drive to the park anyway, it looks like, or...
I think it's a combination of things. I think people do drive to parks. Many people, even if they don't have large parks nearby, they do have parks in their neighborhoods that they walk to and use regularly. I think generally people feel satisfied with the amount of parkland that we have in Lakewood. 25% of the land in Lakewood is park property. So I just think generally speaking, people do feel satisfied. And as Councilor Johnson mentioned, there are some areas where it's more high density and not quite as much park property. But generally speaking, the sentiment is we have a good amount of park property.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Comments? Now that we're done with our questions. Ms. Gutwein, just keep going.
Great. Thank you. That was amazing. And thank you so much for all of your awesome work. I am so just proud and thankful to live in Lakewood and everything that we have and everything you've done over the last few years. And I'm really excited about where we're going. So, just thank you. And then I'm also really excited about how the survey, the process of the survey and capturing all different kinds of people, and then that it was available online, and so many people participated. So I think it's interesting that we still had a great mix of people participating online, but it's just so important to make it accessible to all those different people, and I think it means a lot when you get to have input, and then see it, see that your voice is being heard. And then what you have here really reflects what I hear in the community. And I think, it's really exciting to look at a survey and see how many people are happy with what we have in Lakewood. And they love our parks and they love our recreation and they have a positive experience when they're there. And it's great to see that reflected in this data. So that's awesome. And then in terms of the direction of where we're going, I think we hear a lot about the growth of the community, and I think it's so exciting and so important that the number one thing you have reflected here is plans to continue to expand both our programming and our facilities. This is what I hear in the community, and I think it's really important. And the last thing I want to say is about the dog park. I also just really appreciate the way you're approaching this, because it is something that people really have strong feelings about in both ways, and either really want one or really don't want one. And so I think taking a timely approach and doing it the right way is great. And I went to Chatfield Dog Park for the first time this weekend, and it's a regional destination. Maybe you could say it's a destination dog park.
Yes.
And I had a blast. And so anyone who wants to go to a dog park in the meantime, I would recommend that. And finally, this dog is adorable, and I hope people will pick up their dog poop.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
for all your work.
If I could just mention something, I don't think anybody's mentioned that we did have those surveys available in Spanish. I don't think that was mentioned. So although they weren't mailed out in Spanish, we did reach out and make them available. Oh, they were mailed in Spanish too, so I take it back. So, and we also had paper copies available for people if they wanted to opt in. And our family services manager, Brent Berninger, did a really good job talking with his staff, who many of them are bilingual, and they were talking with their parents as well. So a lot of good participation.
That is so awesome. And I lied. I have one more thing, which is I love that you want to do put the information out to the schools through the schools. And I was wondering if we could get a link on the Jeffco Schools website with information about our recreation programs. And that
We
is
can
really-
certainly try.
Okay.
That's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Ms. Franks?
I wanted to really just kind of talk up the community gardens. It's very exciting that that you've got some sites picked out. Wanted just to kind of share more with the community that it's not just only for your own food production. I found that I grow much more than me and my husband can eat, so I've switched to flower gardening there, but it's still that social aspect. So if you live close to one and you're maybe not needing a lot of food production, you can grow flowers to give away for bouquets. Also, the Ute Trail Community Garden, we do a plant a row, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a row, but where you donate extra produce and we pick places for it to go. So it really starts to actually, for folks who have difficulties providing enough food for their family, it gives the Action Center and other places fresh produce to hand out. And that's a real welcome thing, as long as we aren't all growing squash. I mean, we do like to give them a variety of things to eat. Also wanted to talk up the fact that it's a great way to encourage the pollinators. And so the bee population, even though our beehive didn't succeed, we're going to try again, but it also brings in butterflies. And this year I've got hundreds and hundreds of butterflies that are visiting. So the community gardens are really rich for people to come and read. If you do seating areas, and they become another destination for the community to gather. And so I'm just really excited about that. Also, the off-leash dogs and the dog waste. I'm glad to see we are taking a methodical approach to working through that. It's a cultural change for some people. It's a cultural change for some of the animals that aren't maybe used to that. So I'm glad we're taking a methodical approach, but we really do need to make it safe for residents who have a fear of dogs, and also for people who just want to be able to run in the park without running in the park and encountering something on the shoe or something. So I appreciate that we're really focused hard on that.
Great. Yeah, well said. The community gardens they're special, and proud to say the first one was up in Green Mountain. So that's fantastic. Well done. For folks that don't know, the Community Resource Division is a big division with actually broken down into 7 different areas. I think your budget's around $42 million. And you encompass family services, golf operations, heritage, culture, and the arts, recreation, parks, planning, construction, and maintenance. And that planning and construction and maintenance means that you take care of over 157 buildings. So we talk a lot about the fun stuff that we're doing, and that's fantastic, but you do a lot of the day-to-day operations that really keep us rocking and rolling. If folks have a chance, this report is fantastic, and it really talks about the reach of community resources. 760,000 plus program participants, 23,000 Lakewood rides, one-way trips, 462 visitors to our rec centers. We have 5 Head Start facilities, 2 preschools, and 1 early Head Start. And it's mind-blowing to really see how many opportunities that folks have. 1 campground, 1 swim beach. And I think that's a great resource, especially as we have more kids who may not have the opportunity to experience outdoors. So to have Bear Creek Lake Park is really cool. 3 equestrian facilities. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. And it's a wonderful department, a great group of folks. So thank you all for all the hard work that you do. And what's nice too is that a lot of the things that we hear in the community are reflected. And we're getting ready to talk about fee and lieu, barriers to entry in our scholarship programs. How do we enhance amenities, the sustainability part, as well as water conservation. Winter rec is cool. I mean, we really have a lot of great days in Colorado to be outside all year long. Councilor Franks mentioned the gardens, and then of course a destination pool would be really cool. So hopefully we can figure that one out. And then last but not least, I would just mention the outreach. I think this was the first time we've been able to, utilize, Bang the Table? And you've really tried to go out and find new ways to engage the community. So thank you for that. It's hard, people are busy, but we keep trying a little bit harder, different ways, and hats off to you for getting out there and getting this information. So thank you. We'll see you back in a couple weeks, and hopefully for approval. And now we have part 2. Yes.
Thank you all so much. And thanks for giving me some extra money there, Mayor, in our budget.
You betcha.
Yeah.
Did you say we need a water world?
Yeah, it won't be a problem now. I just wanted to invite our division manager for Heritage, Culture, and the Arts up, Michelle Neerling, and she will be presenting to you the most recent Lakewood Heritage Center plan.
Thank you. Good evening, Michelle. I think you might be giving a plug for an event coming up this weekend too, huh?
Evening. I know. Did you guys see your apples up there? Cider Days is here this weekend. Please come down and enjoy.
Yeah, and before you scoot down, maybe you could, there was some discrepancy in the hours, so after your presentation, if you could maybe fill us in a little bit more on Cider Days.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll do that. Yeah, I was just looking to see if I had a flyer, but you have a flyer, so I might be able to borrow that. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Michelle Neerling. I'm the Heritage, Culture, and the Arts Division Manager for the City of Lakewood. And I'm excited to be here this evening celebrating the culmination of the community's vision for the Lakewood Heritage Center over the next 10 years. I'm here tonight to present the master plan update to you. So tonight we'll briefly review the 1996 master plan. The proposed plan, the 2017 proposed plan, was built upon the 1996 plan. We'll overview the community process and share what we heard in the form of goals and action steps. You all have a copy of the plan. It looks like this. And I'll refer you to key sections as we get further into the presentation. And then we'll wrap up with questions. Let me get my little pointer here. So this is a map of Belmar Park that also includes the Lakewood Heritage Center. And just to provide an orientation, this is Wadsworth. This is Alameda up here. We're right here in the Civic Center. This red line is Belmar Park. And the Lakewood Heritage Center is located within Belmar Park. And Ohio is right here. Kentucky is down here. So the center sits on land that was once part of the Maybon v. Stanton estate. The Lakewood Heritage Center comprises 15 acres within Belmar Park. The 1996 Lakewood Heritage Center Master Plan established the framework for the site and its programming. Specifically, it established this 20th century Lakewood history focus. The plan envisioned an outdoor festival area. It established historic and cultural learning, as well as mission-driven experiences and events. It set the criteria for building selection, specifically how historic buildings are eligible to be moved to the site. The 1996 plan established 6 collecting, interpretive, and programming themes related to the communities: strong agrarian history, impact of water on development, the role of commercial growth with a focus on Colfax, the development of educational institutions, the development of technology highlighting transportation, and diverse cultures and social customs. The master plan also identified specific locations and interpretive dates for the following centers: the Family Farm Center from 1920 to 1930, the Belmar Estate Center 1920 to 1930, the Colfax Commercial Hub 1930 to 1960, or I should say into the 60s. And then the plan talked about a 4th interpretive focus consisting of history from 1960 to the end of the 20th century, to be defined at a later date by the community. In 1996, it was just we were too close to that history. Much has been accomplished from the 1996 plan. The Visitor Center, Colfax Hub, and Festival area have been constructed. Lakewood Heritage Center offers a wide array of educational programs for all ages. The site has established summer and fall events that are well attended. And the Heritage Center welcomes both active and passive visitors to the site. We hear repeatedly that the Lakewood Heritage Center is a wonderful place to take a walk. All of these plans, visions, and accomplishments have been carried forward to the 2017 master plan, and they lay the foundation for the update. Here's the Lakewood Heritage Center today. And again, to orient you, here's Wadsworth, right here. Ohio, Alameda's up here, the Civic Center. Belmar Park is around. It worked. Thank you, Brent. This area highlighted here is the Belmar Center, consisting of May Bonfils' original structures. This is our Family Farm Center. This is the Colfax Hub. The Festival Center is in this approximate location. We have walking trails throughout the site. You can see the gray lines. Those are all of the walking trails. There's also an area, and I'm going to use my cursor, over here by the Bonfils' original structures that goes down here. This is a historic district, a Colorado historic district. It's called the Bonfils-Stanton Belmar Estate Outbuildings District. And it was designated because of her original structures. It allows us to get funding from the State Historical Fund for rehabilitation. All right, so let's get to the 2017 plan. Here is a brief overview of the process. We started out by hiring a consulting firm, Arts Market, who worked with us on collecting and compiling results from the public process. Arts Market has created hundreds of plans throughout the United States, including now our plan. The process included a survey that the community could take online and via hard copy. It was offered in English and Spanish. Several roundtable conversations were held with community stakeholders, volunteers, staff, and all of you provided input through interviews as well. So thank you. There was an on-site presence throughout the weekend at last year's Cider Days, where we solicited feedback from the community over the 2 days. From this input, draft concepts and big ideas were developed, and then we went back out to the community to solicit additional feedback. We did that both through public meetings and through the website. Public feedback was incorporated and into refined goals and action steps, which we then took back out to the public. And we again shared that through the website and public meetings. And this now brings us to the presentation to all of you tonight. Throughout the public process, a number of questions were asked, such as, how do community members and groups engage and interact with the Lakewood Heritage Center currently? Do the themes spelled out in the 1996 plan still resonate? Are there new themes that should be considered in the update? Are there ideas for new and expanded events and programs at the Heritage Center? Do the amenities on site meet the needs of the community? And what stories need to be told and interpreted? And this little graphic up here was taken from the web page that we have kept updated throughout the process. It's currently up right now in the master plan. Both the 96 and the 2017 draft is located there if people want an electronic access. So of course we were thrilled that the community responded. We had over 700 people engage in the process. And you can see a sampling of the many ways that the community was engaging. For more detail about the online survey results and the open-ended commentary from public engagement, please refer to the appendices at the end of the Lakewood Heritage Center Master Plan. They're contained there, appendices, I think it's A and B. The update also gave us an opportunity to refresh the Lakewood Heritage Center mission statement, which is to connect the community and its generations to the 20th century history and heritage of Lakewood. And we'll do that by collecting, preserving, and exhibiting artifacts and through engaging programs, experiences, and community events. We also formalized our guiding principles, which you can see highlighted in the blue square. Based on community feedback, 10 goals were identified, and I'm going to overview the 10 goals, and then I'm going to highlight each of the goals with just some key action steps. I'm not going to read them all. I think we have 41 action steps. I would encourage you to follow along in the master plan beginning on page 11. So the 10 goals are to assess and complete outstanding initiatives from the 1996 master plan, to expand our 20th century stories, to add 3 new collecting and programming themes, to improve the visitor experience, to serve as the city's focal outdoor event space, to ensure the best physical use of the site, to serve as the go-to resource for Lakewood history, to establish a strong identity and brand, to focus on new revenue streams, and to operate according to National Museum standards and best practices. So the goals in detail begin in the plan on page 12. Goal 1, we heard that the community wants us to finish what was started. This includes restoration of historic structures on site and assess items called for in the 1996 master plan, such as a children's play area and a large flower garden. It's called a gracious garden. It's a really large, beautiful flower garden. This is also the goal related to interurban car number 25. This exquisite artifact, which is pictured on the slide, is part of the city's collection and is cared for by Heritage Center staff and volunteers. It needs a permanent home. Convening a Car 25 task force to work on this issue is one of the action steps under Goal 1. And on October 16th, you will hear the results of a feasibility study on potentially housing and operating the car at the Lakewood Heritage Center. This is a picture of Car 25 before it was restored at Camp George West. Goal 2, expand our stories to be inclusive of Lakewood's history through the entire 20th century. You may recall that currently the LHC focus ends in the 1960s. Community feedback emphasized the importance of telling Lakewood's story through the entire 20th century. One of the action steps of this goal is to update the permanent exhibit to include Lakewood history through the year 2000. And this was presented as a budget exception this year in anticipation of celebrating Lakewood's 50th anniversary in 2019. Goal 3, add 3 new themes. We heard repeatedly that the incorporation of the city should be a focus of collecting, interpretation, and programming at the Heritage Center, and that happened in 1969. The role of health, wellness, and the role of health and wellness and the influence of the Federal Center were also themes that the community emphasized. A particular interest was strengthening the relationship between the Heritage Center and Belmar Park. The community wants more interpretive information related to nature and wildlife in the park. And with the Heritage Center being in such close proximity to the park, we really have an opportunity to educate the public about this natural resource through interpretive signs and programs at the Heritage Center, right? Goal 4, creating an exceptional and informational visitor experience is wanted. We received a lot of great feedback from the community related to improved interpretive and directional signage at the center, better visitor orientation elements, more access to history electronically, and improving the experience for young children. Goal 5, serve as the focal outdoor event site for the city. We heard that the community loves the events currently offered, and they want more of them. This includes cultural experiences and performing arts such as theater and dance. The site has limitations, though, such as parking, which leads us to the next goal. Goal 6, ensuring good use of the site both now and into the future. This goal involves looking at the physical site and identifying how we can better accommodate the goals of this plan and improve the visitor experience, including ADA access and safety. Also, using the physical site to enhance the visibility of the Heritage Center along Wadsworth so that more people are aware of the site and can benefit from this community asset. Goal 6, are you still with me? Okay. Sorry, goal 7. We heard that the public wants a local comprehensive resource to access history about Lakewood. This goal is about growing and then providing greater access to the community's collection that is cared for by the Heritage Center. Additionally, this goal is about strengthening relationships with other entities that collect and maintain archives about Lakewood history and helping the public connect to those resources. Goal 8, establish a strong brand and identity. We often hear, "We had no idea you were here." This goal is about creating a recognizable brand and increasing visibility. Goal 9, continue to seek new revenue sources. Staff will continue to look for grants, sponsorships, and earned revenue opportunities to help offset costs. And finally, goal 10, the Lakewood Heritage Center will accomplish all of these actions using National Museum standards and best practices. There are several projects already in process, including identifying city archival materials, and we're working with the city clerk's office on part of that project. Continuing to inventory the collection, expanding educational programming, establishing guidelines for event partnerships, because we can't and probably shouldn't produce all of our own events, but we can work with a lot of great community partners who are doing a fantastic job, and perhaps they can work with us on site. Convening the CAR 25 Citizen Task Force, and again, part of their work will be represented on October 16th. And rehabilitation of the Caretaker's Cottage. And that's the image that's on the slide in front of you. The Caretaker's Cottage is a kit house, so it was built in sections. And in order to rehabilitate it, we needed to remove some of the sections that were added later than the original kind of core of the building. And this crane shows the sun porch being reattached. If you look, where's my thing? Sorry, I'm off topic. But if you look right here, you can see that was once the original exterior of the building. Isn't that neat? So this is when the sun porch was being re-adhered to the building after we shored up the foundation. So our thanks to the many community members, our volunteers, staff, and all of you for helping us envision the future of the Lakewood Heritage Center over the next 10 years. The phasing of the plan begins on page 19. I must say it's quite ambitious, but heck, why not, right? And we're asking you to adopt the plan on October 23rd. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. That's great. Ambitious is good. All right, I'm going to open questions. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't see anything in the plan, but I may have overlooked it. Signage on Wadsworth, old-fashioned looking signage that would be right there on Ohio. Would that help bring attention?
Yes,
Okay.
it would. And that's actually part of the physical study of the site. We're going to be doing that in 2018. and looking for ways to increase the visibility on Wadsworth. So many people travel and they see the Red Barn in particular, but they don't have any idea of what type of opportunities are available to them at that site.
That's why I was thinking if it was just a metal sign. I mean, I'm thinking wrought iron is what I'm thinking. I've already got it designed in my brain.
Excellent.
I'll send you a picture of what I'm thinking of. The other thing that I was thinking of that would be very interesting, I know the Audubys are very well versed in all the history of Lakewood. I'm wondering if we could impose on them to be an unofficial city historian from time to time, and maybe have them in residence to, have a historian in residence. I don't know if that steps on any toes or whatever, but they seem to have pictures and knowledge that's pretty in-depth about the history of Lakewood. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. They do a lot of great work, and we do communicate with them quite often and serve as resources to each other.
Well, I know that they did a huge, participated in on the Colfax survey, and were able to find out a lot of information on the Colfax buildings, and I just thought that might be a good fit for what we're looking at the Heritage Center. So
yeah,
thank you.
Ms. Vincent.
Yeah, a couple questions. I know we're going to get output on the CAR 25 because there are different viewpoints on where that should go. And we did hear from Mr. Marino last year, who said that it was always a part of the Colfax because that's where it was.
Right.
I need to ask, one of the things that we want to do is to build the fire station, the first fire station. Help me understand why the fire station is still on Colfax. Why isn't it being moved there, or why isn't that being addressed since the original one is still here?
Yeah, that's a great question. From a preservation perspective, preserving in place is always preferred. So part of the criteria for moving a building to the Colfax or to the Lakewood Heritage Center is that building needs to be endangered and at risk of being lost forever. It's only then that you move on to the next criteria, which is size and scale. Does it fit within the interpretive themes? Those types of criteria. So the fire station has been envisioned for a number of years. West Metro Fire Foundation was very active in that vision. And the building on Colfax is not endangered. So it's not eligible to be moved to the site, and it's still in use. And so an alternative vision was established to build a representative of Fire Station of Lakewood's first firehouse. And convening a task force on that issue is in the master plan. I believe it's in goal 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's to restore it, or that's to rebuild,
construct new
on
yes.
Okay, because last time I went by it looked empty, the firehouse, and I've gotten some calls from people who say, why aren't we building in place? And the knowledge and the people are still around, that's served on there. So
we'll check that out. Thank you.
Okay. And another thing is too, it's how do you resolve that conflict from building in place, because we do have a lot of historical, especially in the northeastern section of Lakewood, rather than ripping it down and then trying to build a brand new old-looking building.
Right. No, that's a good question. So I'll use the example of the Estes Motel. Mm-hmm. The Estes Motel was on Colfax, at Colfax approximately Kipling.
Correct.
And that land has been redeveloped. And the owner contacted us and said, hey, I'm going to redevelop this land. Is the Estes Motel of interest to you? And so he donated the hotel to the city. Actually, it's a motel. He donated the motel to the city. And that is how that motel came to be eligible to come to the Lakewood Heritage Center. The 1996 master plan calls for structures that demonstrate how Colfax Avenue was the gateway to the Rockies and tourism through Lakewood, right? And so the motel fit within the theme. It was small enough in scale to fit within the other structures on the Colfax hub. And that's how we came to move it to the Colfax hub. So it's got to be endangered, number one. It's got to be at risk of being torn down forever, and we would lose it. And then it's consideration after that.
After that.
Mm-hmm.
And one last question.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Ask as many as you'd like.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
What has there been any thought, and have you looked at, because there's many groups that are getting very active about the fear they're losing, but they were losing the neon signs that are up and down on Colfax, and some of those have already been lost. Have you looked at that issue?
We are usually part of conversations if signs are potentially going to be lost. We work with the Preservation Commission as well. We don't have anywhere in our master plan that calls for like a neon sign, I don't know, graveyard, if you will, where they would go. But if a neon sign became available and it related to a building, we would consider it. If it was something small enough that we could put into the collection, we might consider it. They're usually really large.
They're very large. Most of the hotels, I mean, the neon signs I'm aware of are along hotels and on Colfax.
Yeah, and there is another entity who is working to preserve neon signs. So we also work with that entity as well. I think it's really about saving this history. It's not maybe quite as important as to who is saving it as to the fact that they're being saved.
And that would be my bottom line. So.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Finn, and you bring up a great question, because we are seeing those disappear. And I know it's challenging. I don't think the folks surrounding Belmar Park would like to see neon signs pile up, but maybe that is something as we move forward with our historical preservation, or maybe one of our other groups that we can look at and see. Yeah. Absolutely. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I personally took a tour with you a few weeks ago out at the Heritage Center looking at potential placement for the trolley. And I have to tell you, Michelle, I was so impressed with the care that you are giving regarding the preservation of the historic portion there, and the thought that goes into anything that goes out there. Thank you. And thank you for including Car 25 in the discussion. I appreciate that. I'd like to piggyback on something that Councillor Harrison said regarding signage on Wadsworth. It had been at least thought about or introduced that a potential site for the trolley could be on Wadsworth so that people could see it and actually attract it as a destination. Just a thought. And also the trolley, I noticed in here, there's a lot of partnerships with education and schools. That's wonderful. I really like that. The trolley up in Fort Collins, they partner with the school district up there as well. And even though the site of it is not in a heritage park, the students on their curriculum, I believe, come once a year and learn about that up in Fort Collins. So that's something that we can keep in mind. As I was reading through this, there are awesome ideas. And one of them is, of course, restrooms, the parking, and food service kind of thing. I don't know if it's something that's potential to look at, like at the caretaker's home or someplace else, to turn it into a tea room. If you'll remember the Blue Room at Lutheran Hospital, it used to be a tea room. I've heard different reasons why that's not going on anymore. But maybe one of these buildings could be opened for that with volunteers. That's how it was staffed at the Blue Room, or at the Blue House. And maybe even partner with the Taste of Denmark, from 10 to 2 a couple times a week. Just a thought. And also, as you get farther down the road, this site's got so much potential. I really enjoyed reading all the enthusiasm. I could feel it in the pages. And maybe have ghost tours there at Halloween with some of those old buildings. And I noticed in one of the slides that it looked like there were lambs there. If there's ever any potential to partner with maybe some farm and have them allow some of their animals for a few months a year, like a petting zoo, sort of like White Fence Farm. I'm just throwing some ideas out when I think about what kids would enjoy. And to piggyback again on what Karen was talking about with Mr. Ottoby, he came and spent time with me at the house that I grew up in to get a history. It would be awesome to have some kind of a compilation of all the old homes that are still up in Lakewood and what their history was. What comes to mind is Ellis Island, to be honest with you. You know, when you go through there, you can find the people that came through there and a little bit of their history. The reality is there's so much potential. It just takes money and time and volunteers. And I think with the kind of enthusiasm that you have and the master plan in place, that it will create that kind of excitement for people to have more time to donate to this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gutwein.
Great job. Thank you so much. Loved reading about this. And then I just wanted to say too, I love how at the end you have the images of the what people did during the community meetings, and so we have the sticker charts of what people liked, and I think that's great to preserve this. And then I just noticed, you know, it's interesting to me that the thing that looks like people really want to see more and more of is the concerts and the outdoor films, and that seems to be what people are more and more interested in than maybe the tours and the historic classes and that kind of stuff. So just really loved this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. Well done. Nice work. So we'll see you in a couple weeks. Hold on. Ms. Shakti.
I thought we were on questions.
Okay. I didn't see a light on. Ask away.
I just want to say I didn't have any questions, but
Well, we're on questions. Just kidding. Go ahead.
That I mean, as you know, the park and the Heritage Center is such a huge asset to Ward 3 and to Lakewood, in part because of Belmar, and there's so many people who live near there. Reading this presentation gave me more of a sense that you can just sort of take it for what it is today, and to have more of a sense of this is a place that we as a community have created and we're continuing to create it. So I appreciate that ongoing effort.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Well done. And just a reminder, Cider Days, October 7th and 8th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's great. Always a lot of fun. All right, next up on the agenda is State of the Courts. And I would like to invite Presiding Judge Ann Stavik down. Good evening. Good evening, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you. And my new court administrator needs to give me a little bit of a hand to put the PowerPoint in here.
Great.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. And good evening. I want to thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Paul and Council. to be able to address you tonight. I want to let you know how much I appreciate the support of City Council and City Management. I probably won't be doing another one of these for some of you again. I know this will be the last time that I talk with some of you. And just want to let you know that your positive feedback and your encouragement have meant an awful lot to me personally, but also to the whole court. We continue to be a leader in the municipal courts in Colorado, and we have innovative programs and approaches based on the latest research, and I really appreciate your support in giving us the freedom to be able to do all of that. I think the state of the court is very good at this point, and I'm happy to report that to you. The clear message that City Council has sent to us is that you want us to make a difference in the community, that you want us to try to address the root causes of criminal behavior, that you want us to help people feel better and have healthier, happier lives. And I really appreciate that you've given us such a strong mission. We do try to seek justice, inspire public trust, and we're very committed to community safety. When I think about the sad night that we had last night and how that's impacted even those of us personally in this community, we realize that we need to make the very most of what we do have and try our hardest to make the most of that. I do want to make introductions. I think you know most of the people here. I have Judge Daniel Ramsey, who has worked in the courts for 27 years, and we always appreciate his experience and his wisdom. Judge Corinne Flanagan has been with us for 3 years, and her energy and enthusiasm has been wonderful. I have Chief Mark Dietl, who has been with the courts 7.5 years, and he was with Lakewood Police 25 years, so we really have some great experience, and he's done some nice connecting for us there. And then Tammy Smith has been with the courts for 25 years. And Tammy, she's like the pulse of the courts. She knows everything that goes on there, so we sure appreciate her. And we have 2 new managers. We have our new probation chief. This is Jennifer Zublik. And our new court administrator, who is just helping me, Mr. Scott Hefty, who you will remember was the chief probation officer. Norm Brisson retired after 6.5 years. He did such a nice job for us. He really brought a very stable and safe atmosphere so that we could really promote good morale and so that we could start a lot of programs, and we appreciate all that he's done. I really know that in Scott Hefty we're going to carry on that very positive management style. Scott brings an awful lot to us. He's been in probation for 24 years and has been with our probation department for the last 6.5 years. He received the Municipal Hero Award, and a lot of you were in Breckenridge for that. There are only 3 in the state of Colorado, and there were a lot of nominees, so it was really fun to be there, and Governor was there to give him that award this summer. He has developed, I would say, the best probation department in a municipal court in the state. He's really, like I said, improved morale, but very much keeps up with the research, and so we're always looking at best practices, and he's just done a great job with that. And our new probation manager, Jennifer Zublik, I'm very excited to have her here. She's actually been in juvenile probation for 11 years, and she started as an intern for 1 year. She's been a senior probation officer, so she has been doing some supervision, but she's also been really creative and innovative. I know I've talked to you a lot about our juvenile mental health program, which started at the Sebeski School, and we now call it the LEAP program because the Sebeski School moved to Wheat Ridge. We decided to keep the program, which really addresses the needs of kids with behavioral disorders or behavioral difficulties, and we still have plenty of need for that, even though we don't have the Sebeski Sandusky School. This was actually Agent Fred Peters of the Lakewood Police Department's original idea, and then Jen really took off with it, and I was very excited to be a part of it. And we've had a lot of success, so that was something that Jen was very involved in. I look forward to more creativity on her part. She's only been in this job a few weeks, and she's already hired 3 new probation officers. So she's just been doing interviews since she started. We've actually had quite a bit of turnover in the courts, and I have to say, pretty all good. I mean, these are people that with the good economy, and they're moving on to very nice positions. And can understand why they're leaving us, so we don't like it a whole lot. So, but they're positive moves. But she's hired 3 new probation officers, and the first one is really fun. It's Agent Fred Peters, the one who's been a Lakewood police officer and who came up with the idea for the juvenile program. And he decided to trade in his badge and become a probation officer, which is exciting. We've also hired Rachel Starry, who's a supervisor at the Juvenile Assessment Center, and then Preston Wilhite, who actually supervises sex offenders for the Juvenile Assessment Center. So he's coming with a lot of great experience too. We have about 12,070 open probation cases this year, and I think I've talked to you a lot over the years about what they do as far as making sure that we're looking at the root causes of what's going on, the drug and alcohol treatment, the mental health, the school attendance or jobs, making sure that people are doing things that are making positive changes for their lives. We have a number of interns and volunteers. We're actually getting a lot of free labor, and it's a win-win because those interns get college credit. What's kind of fun is that 6 of our current staff members actually started as interns, so this really has been a way to train and get to know people. We also have 4, so it's 11 college interns, 4 high school interns. We have a number of volunteers. The new staff in the Violations Bureau, 3 out of the 4 new people that are up at the front desks were interns to begin with, and then the 4th we stole from Wheat Ridge. Actually, she's been great. What's been fun is that they have all really embraced our philosophy of respect and patience and dealing with people who are often not in a good place when they come to the courts. And we did our 4th annual survey that we've told you about before, and it was generally, again, very positive, but probably the group that got the most positive comments were those new Violations Bureau staff, that they said they were just very friendly and helpful and nice, and that was exciting because we like to see that the new people coming in are carrying on with that same way of looking at what we should be doing. We also have a new marshal. One of our marshals became a Lakewood police officer, so we're just trading back and forth with Lakewood. But we have a new court marshal, Mike Kitzmiller, who has already made an impact in the court. He's been there for a few months. Now, one of the things that I'm so proud of with the marshals is that they are very well trained, and Chief Dietl makes sure that each of the marshals is trained in crisis intervention. So basically understanding how to relate or deal with people who are having a crisis. And we had just a few weeks ago a man come in who was in his 50s, homeless, addicted, very depressed, and he came into court just shaking and crying and said, I'm going to kill myself. I just need a gun. I'm going to do this. We called the marshals, and Mike, our newest marshal, ended up being one of the lead marshals who was there to help talk him through this. And he ended up taking him to the hospital after realizing that he was very serious about really wanting to kill himself at the first opportunity. Took him there, got him checked in. He ended up spending a couple nights there on a mental health hold. But he came back a week later. He did have a court appearance, but he made the rounds when he came back. He wanted to go talk to Mike, and he told Mike, "You saved my life. Thank you so much." He'd gotten on medication that he'd been off of. Then he came into court. He wanted to tell my court staff and me that we had saved his life. And he's one of my people that I keep monitoring. I see him every month, and I'm very happy to say that he's doing well. But it's that kind of sensitivity and training that I see throughout the staff, but it's especially, I'm so proud of the marshals to have that ability to be so caring and good with them. We also, on top of the changes in the personnel that we have, we've continued, maybe this isn't such a big change because I talked to you about this before, we continue to be under a fair amount of scrutiny from the outside, from civil rights groups and groups that are really looking at criminal justice, and that's something that has been very much on people's minds, and we welcome the scrutiny. As I've told you before, I'm very proud of how Lakewood handles our defendants and handles the law. I mean, I know that we're being fair and following the Constitution. And we continue to be a leader in trying to help the rest of the state do this. I actually just finished a couple months ago as president of the Colorado Municipal Judges Association, which was a great, rewarding experience. And I'm actually staying very involved with that group because we're trying hard to stress the professionalism and integrity. And we've just added so many boot camps and classes, and we're reaching out to all the small courts, the rural courts, the big courts, and we've just really turned that whole organization upside down. And so I've got a really solid, strong group of people who want to make sure that all the municipal judges are really trying to work toward being more fair and having good standards. So we've been pretty successful with that. I know that there are still going to be some stories. In fact, I think there may be some horror stories that are going to be coming out soon. They're focusing a little bit more on the state courts and the county courts, but I think that the municipal courts are probably going to be a part of that as well. And certainly the sort of rogue courts, or the courts that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, we'll keep working to try to help them make changes. But I also get concerned about some of the sort of the fight for local control, or fight for control over what's going on in municipalities. And I think this is happening. I think you guys are experiencing this too, that it's happening in a number of different issues in different parts of government, that states and counties want to have more control over what is happening in the cities. And I've certainly appreciated your support. A number of you have been involved in just trying to educate the legislature and educate people on how important it is for some of these issues to stay local. And there's a place for the federal government, there's a place for the state, but certainly what the local governmental bodies can do is critical. And I think the cases that are in the municipal courts are appropriate cases for us to be handling. We know the city, we know the neighborhoods, we know our resources, we see the citizens almost more than just about anybody, I think, because we have such high volume coming in, both as defendants but also as jurors. And so I think that for the kinds of cases we're handling, we can get the resources to the people, and often we know even the individuals pretty well that are coming in on a regular basis. So I appreciate your help and support in trying to make sure that we retain the things that help us to do that work. Now, it's very much treatment and intervention that we focus on, and as we've talked to you before, and one of the great examples of what we've done, I know that we've talked a lot about our veterans program, and we've appreciated your interest in all of this. I think this is a great example of how we know the people and know the resources, and have really helped to get the community involved in trying to help those veterans who have not had as easy a time coming back into our community as others have. And I'm very proud of this Veterans Court, which, of course, Scott Hefty and Judge Munsinger and Judge Rob Lockery got going, and they've done just an amazing job on taking a small number of veterans, but really making some changes in their lives. And one of the things that has been most exciting about it is that this is actually Judge Munsinger with one of our successful veterans. This year, in 2017 so far, we've taken 6 homeless veterans and actually gotten them into homes. And so that's, that we just feel that that's a great accomplishment, and we hope that those numbers will still go up. The 5th Veterans Fair was just last week. A number of you were there. We had the best turnout we've ever had, and there was a lot of great energy and excitement, and just the connections people are making over trying to help this group are just very exciting. Scott Hefty's also involved in the final roll call, and this is something that a group of citizens and veterans have gotten together to do for veterans who have died, but their remains have remained unclaimed. And so it's actually taken painstaking research and work to go through and determine who the veterans are, and then carry on to give them a respectful burial. And so that's been a passion, and Scott's putting an awful lot of time into that. Now, we certainly want to look at the roots of crime, but another area that is certainly being getting a lot of attention right now is jail, and not only jail space, but there have been some horror stories. These are some of the horror stories of people kind of getting lost in the jails and getting stuck places for weeks at a time. The Municipal Judges Association actually worked with CML and the ACLU to put together a bill that would limit a person's time in jail before they see a judge to 48 hours. And I think we were kind of playing defense for the first year or two with some of the civil rights groups, and they were coming in and telling us what was going wrong. This was exciting because it was a collaborative effort. We got together with them. We all agreed that this was a very reasonable thing to do, and so it was great to be able to get this legislation together to be able to limit that. The other thing that's coming up with jail time is that our jail is really full, and the sheriff's been saying, what can you do? The municipal courts are obviously have the least serious cases, and so they're looking at us first. And yet it really is critical to have jail or have punitive sanctions so that we can make sure that people are motivated to get the help that they need. I mean, it's the carrot and the stick. We have the carrot that their lives are going to get better, but without some kind of, stick also, without some kind of punitive sanction that we don't like to use until the very last, as a last resort. Many people just need that extra, this is what could happen to you, or even have the consequence and then get another chance to really try to get treatment. So we very much want to protect our jail bed space and make sure that we have that just as an option. Now, most people don't need a jail sentence. Most of them actually go to jail because they don't appear for court. And so that's when the warrant goes out. We've had, it looks like it's going to be projected for 2017, 4,149 arrest warrants. So that means that many people didn't show up for court. This is where Chief Mark Dietl and his marshals have been working very hard to basically try to keep people from going to jail in the first place. They've actually taken almost 1,000 people with cases with warrants and figured out a way to get them right into court or give them another court date. And so a good quarter of all these cases, the marshals have been working with actively to avoid having them even come to jail. One of the things that never used to be done is that other jurisdictions would arrest our prisoners, and we would have them transported to the Jefferson County Jail, and then we would see them on our video advisements in the next couple of days. What Chief Diddle and the marshals are doing is to bring them right to court instead of taking them to the jail. And so we've done that to it'll probably be close to 100 people by the end of the year, which really does help with the jail space as well. We can resolve the cases. Like I said, many of them just failed to appear. The marshals call every defendant before issuing a warrant, and we're just looking at making sure that we see them right. I mean, we see them Monday through Friday. Judge Ramsey and I share on-call duties, so one of us is getting emails and looking at the jail beds every Saturday night. We split the month, and making sure that there's a reason for the person who's arrested on a Lakewood warrant, and then also, so finding probable cause, and then we also can address bond and let them out at that point. So, like I said, we're working very hard to make sure that we're protecting those cases, or those jail beds. Now, one of the kinds of cases that we really do need that stick for are the domestic violence cases. And I know we've talked to you about how we really have a strong philosophy of not giving up on anyone, much to the unhappiness of a few of our defendants, or some of them. But whereas the county courts handle the more serious domestic violence cases, and they tend to have defendants either comply or they face pretty serious consequences. We have somewhat less serious cases, and our philosophy is that we don't want to give up on them. We know these people are coming back into the community, and we want to make sure that they're treated, that they've gone through domestic violence treatment, and that they're sober. At least they get a chance to see what sobriety is like. And so we may give them consequences, but we're going to take them back and take them back. And I have to say that we get success. Sometimes it takes years, but we get success on almost all of our cases. I mean, our success rate is really pretty impressive. The other time that I've heard, and this is in the last month or so, that we saved someone's life was on one of our domestic violence defendants. And this was a woman who had a long criminal history, had spent time in the Department of Corrections, into drugs, serious mental health issues. She'd been homeless for 10 years. And we had her on our domestic violence caseload. We got her into treatment, and she ended up getting some temporary housing at the beginning of this year, and that did an awful lot to motivate her to be more successful with treatment. And just last month, she came in and she first of all said, "You saved my life. I wasn't going to live long the way I was going." But then she also brought pictures of her new apartment, and they'd actually given her a brand new bed, and that's what she was really excited about. And then she had donated furniture, but it was the brand new bed that she said, look at how much my life has changed. And she was just beaming, and it was really exciting to see that kind of progress. And she continues to do well, and we'll just hope that she sticks with that and continues to. Our summons numbers are down a fair amount, and what you can see with that is that when the police officers aren't writing tickets, our case numbers go down. And I have talked to Chief McCaskey about it, and I think you're all well aware that we've had a lot of retirements, a lot of movement in the police department. But they are bringing many, many new officers in. So we've had just huge recruit classes, and they're very successfully being trained and integrated into the police department. And so this will be a short-term issue. the summons numbers are down, and part of it is that we have the new officers that can't write so many tickets because they're being trained, but it's also the officers who are training them who aren't out patrolling as much. So I see this as being an issue that won't be there for long. With the summons numbers being down, it also means that the revenue is somewhat down. And so the fines, the traffic fines in particular, are lower this year than they've been. Looks like the last 3 years were quite high. We're more like we were at about 2013. But again, I'm being reassured that this most likely will change. This gives you just a little bit of a breakdown of what kinds of cases we're looking at. Usually the traffic infractions and the traffic offenses are just way more than the penal cases. And so you can see at this point, those are the low ones. And again, those are the ones that usually get fines instead of other kinds of consequences. Shopliftings are actually a bit down too, and I know that we've talked about how those have gone up and up and up. Well, I think this is the Colorado Mills Mall is actually closing, and so the shoplifting that's one way to cure the shoplifting problem over there. But we're hoping to get them all back, and not that we're hoping for more shoplifters, but I think that'll be a natural result of that too. So, and I think that mall closing for just a short period of time, and I understand they'll be back very soon, has probably impacted more numbers than just the shoplifting, just for another place in Lakewood where people get together and don't always behave well. The hearing numbers have not gone down as much, and this is where you see that we're still doing a lot of these domestic violence cases and doing a lot of the adult penal cases, and those are the ones that really take the time. I have to give a lot of credit to the city attorneys. You know, we have a great probation department, but the majority of the criminal cases are actually kind of supervised or at least followed by the city attorneys who come and report to court. And it's because the probation officers just don't have the resources to follow all these cases. And so when we have classes in community service and counseling and treatment and those kinds of requirements for these cases, it's the city attorneys who monitor and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, check and make sure that they really are completing the classes, having clean UAs. And so I do want you to appreciate the city attorneys, because there are a lot of city attorneys around the state who don't take that on. And we have that extra level of accountability that we're able to expect out of defendants because they're willing to monitor that. These this translates a little bit more directly. This might show you better that for the 2017, the number of trials, the number of arraignments, the number of prisoner hearings, you can see that the court ends up being very busy with all of these. Now we are getting a new computer system. In fact, Tammy Smith is our person who is getting all that put together to try to get our paper system onto the computer and go wireless. So she's basically doing 2 full-time jobs these days, because that's just been a huge endeavor. But we are hoping that will really help with the efficiency and the time that it takes with all of these extra or these demanding court time. The juvenile cases, again, I know we've showed you these bar graphs before, and we still continue to make sure that every juvenile is assessed for their risk, and we tailor their sentence and the consequences to what their issues are as opposed to what the crime is. We have done about an 18-month study to see whether the kids who are high risk have actually committed more crimes, kids who are low risk don't. And this assessment has turned out to be very, very accurate, which is great because we feel then that we can go ahead and continue to put the resources with the kids who are higher risk and who we know are going to be potential problems later on. And this has just made us that much more efficient. I do want to thank you again for giving us the money to do UAs, the urine screens for indigent kids. The fact that you guys gave us that extra money has really made a difference in just being able to help kids get off the drugs and do better. We have had a very busy graffiti cleanup, and they're doing a lot more than just graffiti cleanup. This was an 80-year-old woman. There are a number of complaints about the way her yard looked, and you can see from the before and after that our graffiti cleanup kids with Shane really did a remarkable job. And I'll just show you a few other pictures of the graffiti cleanup. It's one of the more dramatic ones. Shane actually was with his team doing cleanup of some graffiti when he saw another kid actually doing graffiti. And so he ended up calling the Lakewood police and so was involved in the ticket for the kid who was actually doing graffiti while they were cleaning it up just down the way. And so he ended up getting charged, and then he ended up going on Shane's crew to actually do graffiti cleanup himself. So, yeah, these are just a few more examples of that. I know some of you are aware of the issues around Lakewood High School, and Shane's group has been taking the kids out and trying to at least keep the grounds clean and do a lot of litter pickup. And so that we're hoping will kind of reduce some of those issues around there. And the final, we very, very rarely use detention for kids, and I think the research is showing that does a lot of damage, and we absolutely don't want to do it. But it's another one of those things where if the kids sort of know that that's even a possibility, it helps motivate them. And like I said, we almost never send them there, but it's a good tool just to have in our back pocket so that they're aware of that. One of the things that we've started that I'm really excited about, and this actually again started with the Lakewood Police working with the best practices team at First Judicial, so in Jefferson County. And they brought us in to start a minority overrepresentation committee. What we're doing is we collected the data in the Lakewood courts and the Lakewood Police Department, and this was to try to look and see if there are points in the system, either with initial contacts by the police, with how police handle kids, it was all with juveniles, how they come into the court system and then how they're handled there. I have Judge Flanagan and Chief Deedle are both on this committee, and they've done a lot of research. They have some experts who are taking a look at the data, and we're trying to determine basically if there are any points that things could be changed to make sure that we don't have these kinds of issues in Lakewood. But I've been very pleased that out of all of Jefferson County, it's Lakewood who's stepping up and wanting to take a look at ourselves and what we're actually doing. Just a few quick notes on things, again, that we've been working with some of the civil rights groups and the legislature doing. Sealing of records when there's dismissal or acquittal, and this just seemed like one of those fair things that we were happy to jump on board with, that those records should be sealed. And then we also have the expungement of all juvenile records in a municipal court. I think a lot of people have always thought that juvenile records were something that nobody could see, and with computers and just the way society's been, that wasn't so much the case. So we were involved in certainly supporting this so that law enforcement will still always be able to get the records. So if a kid really does need more attention, those records can be found and looked at by law enforcement or the courts, but basically everybody else can't get them. So schools, work, it's juveniles can move on and not have to worry about these issues that they've had as kids. We hope that we're giving them enough tools so that when they move on, they really can lead healthy, productive, and law-abiding lives. So, and with that, I do again want to thank you. I really have appreciated your support, and I welcome any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Your Honor. I think that we are going to have some, and I will start with Ms. Vincent.
Very rarely do I just make comments, but there were several of us that were at the CML conference, and it was just so nice that with all these people, and Lakewood was so recognized. It was just like, oh yeah, this is my city. So it was just very nice and very well deserved. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you.
Mr. Roybal?
Your Honor, thank you. I want to thank you for helping all our fellow veterans in the city. I know some of our population, some of our veterans from Desert Shield and Desert Storm are angry right now. And just to remind you, I was walking in one of their shoes. I was angry too. And thank you for helping us. And with graffiti, that's been the number one thorn on my side from day one. And thank you for helping resolve that. I know that people really, they don't take a close look at it, but it's the broken window theory. It starts with graffiti and then it goes into car thefts and burglaries and different things. And, when people start looking at if they don't respect their community and they look at the graffiti, then they just keep walking and things just keep happening and things get worse and worse. So now in my ward, we've taken a position and a stand, and thank you for helping us, because we fought very hard to fight back with graffiti. And we told these taggers, no more, no mas. We've had enough. So I want to thank you for helping us, and anything we can do to expand the program, I'd like to lobby on your behalf if that's what you would like to see it grow.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shakti.
As you know, from when I started, I've had a real interest in how the courts were run. And I've had the chance to be very impressed and learn a lot. And so for the sake of Lakewood, but also for the sake of myself, I've really appreciated seeing how things are done here and how they are done. And you said it very well at the beginning. You said there are innovative programs based on research, and you address the root causes of criminal behavior. And I think that's key. But that's sort of an intellectual way to put it. From like a couple of days I spent just watching in court, or from the stories you bring, it's really human, and it really matters in people's lives. And so thank you all for your work.
Cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are so proud to have such a great court system in Lakewood. One of the last comments that you made about juveniles having their records expunged, you said can be expunged. I'm assuming there has to be a process there that they have to ask for it to be expunged?
Actually, that I misspoke. They will be expunged.
They will be expunged. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Very exciting. Ms. Gutwein?
Thanks. This is something that I've learned so much about just in my time here, and in the legislative committee. We learned a lot about just these bills and the way they impact people's lives and can have an impact for the rest of their lives. And I'm just like everyone else said, I'm just so proud and thankful for our system here and what the work that you do and the difference that you make in people's lives in breaking the cycle. And so thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, very good. Well, I think that's all the questions, and I would echo everything that's been said here. Being able to be out in other communities and getting to hear about the professionalism of you and your staff is really cool. And the fact that when you're dealing with the ACLU, which can be quite a challenge, and they say, well, we're not really focused on you, we're looking at other folks, but we just happen to fall into it. So that says a lot, and you've taken the leadership role on that. And to have your team at the Veterans Fair was really cool, and you continue to do that and find new ways to raise awareness and outreach for veterans. So I really appreciate all that you do. I do have a question, and that has to do with our youth. How are we seeing with substance abuse? Are we seeing going up? And I guess when they are engaged with opiates, are they going to district court then instead of?
And actually, we're seeing a lot of heroin and opiates. They do go to district court if they're caught with the drugs, but we see them because they often have drug paraphernalia on them when they're shoplifting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have a formal program to deal with them, but we have a process where we're seeing them very regularly, even sometimes every couple of weeks, and making sure that they're getting into treatment. This is an area where that jail does work. It tends to not be the juveniles, though. It's been like the 18 to 25, I would say. We haven't seen kids so much in that. And I think the kids who are having those kinds of opiate addictions probably are going to district court. But we are focusing a lot of attention, a lot of court time, and this is where the city attorneys are really monitoring the heroin treatment. They can get their methadone pretty close down here on Alameda, and so it's worked out pretty well that they can go there, come to court, and we're monitoring what's going on there. But we're certainly seeing an uptick of it. It's scary. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, again, thank you all very much. You do great things, and you change lives, and I know that firsthand. So thank you. And also, I guess I'll welcome the Honorable Health Sergeant is here tonight, too,
Yes.
from Jefferson County. So thanks for coming out. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy.
Good night.
All right. I will now open public comment. Fantastic. I will close public comment. And I will start with reports all the way down there on my right. Mr. Coop, Mr. Wickman, Ms. Gutwein.
This Saturday morning at 9 a.m., we are having a Ward 5 meeting about growth. And so I'd like to invite everyone who has questions, wants to learn more about what Lakewood is doing, wants to share their opinions, wants to fact check something they read on Nextdoor. We hope to see you at 9 a.m. at Bear Valley Church. Thank you.
Ms. Franks, Ms. Harrison.
I want to add one more to that. Tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., South Lakewood Business Association will also be having a discussion on growth, and we'll have speakers on both sides. So come and get educated. 7:30 White Fence Farm. Thank you.
Ryball.
No report.
Ms. Vincent. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. This Saturday, Ward 1 will have our ward meeting at 9:30 at Holy Shepherd Lutheran. At 9th and Kipling, we have two speakers. One is a lady from A Little Help, and then Declan Costello, who is from Emergency Preparedness. And he was going to come in response to the hurricanes. But after what happened this morning, I'm sure that he will expand that conversation on emergency preparedness in our own community. Things such as when you enter a building to look where the exit sign is so that you know how to get out. And also for those of you who are inclined to give blood, now would be an excellent time to please donate. They are going to be requiring a considerable amount in Las Vegas. Thank you.
Ms. Shakti.
in addition to cider days, there's the cleanup where you can bring appliances and things, and the thrift store will take them. And you can go to lakewood.org/cleanup for all the details.
Mr. Roybal had an update.
Yeah, I just had a thought. Real quick, Food Bank of the Rockies is our sponsor for the food bank at Phillips United Methodist Church tomorrow from 3 to 5. Please come. Thank you.
Ms. Harrison.
I just want to wish the man that I walk through my life with a happy 30th anniversary. We'll be celebrating that tomorrow, and I'm so blessed to have him in my life. Love you, Doug.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. Joyce, anything? Okay.
No, I have nothing.
Mr. Graham? Ms. Hodson? All right. Well, thank you all, and get home safe. Thank you to our police agents. And we are adjourned at, we'll wait 15 more seconds, and it'll be 9:30. Just kidding. We're done.